Hello everyone and welcome back to the School of Shabs. Now I've got a very special video for you today, as you can see from the title, Beyond Black History Month. Now I wanted to post this video in the month of November instead of October. You'll remember last year I posted a video on Black History Month, dedicated to Black History Month in the month of October, because October is Black History Month here in United Kingdom. However, just to keep the topic alive, because it tends to get quieter in November and even quieter in December when we all sort of close down for our Christmas break, I thought I would post this video in November instead of October. Now I have a very, very special guest appearing through the School of Shabs today. Many of you will know him. His name is Abu-Bakr al-Shabazz. And he is so many things. I've had to write them down, actually. So Abu-Bakr is a historian. He's a comparative sociologist. He's a psychologist and a psychotherapist. He's an educator. And he is an expert in social study. And he's probably so much more that I've forgotten. But I really want to welcome Abu-Bakr to the School of Shabs. And Abu-Bakr is someone I've been learning immensely from over the last year, as well as others. And what we decided today is that I was going to pose some questions to Abu-Bakr, and he's going to answer them for all of us about Black History Month. The premise that we both start from, myself and Abu-Bakr, like many of you, is that Black History Month is very important. Yes, it should not just be limited to 1 month, but that month highlights and really sort of encourages the celebration that people who are Black, all the contributions and the wonderful achievements they've made throughout history. And that month gives us that special focus on that topic. However, what we do know is that history's been whitewashed. Things have been erased, things have been kept from us, we've been lied to. You know, when we ask who created the light bulb, when I ask my children, did they jump to say, Edison? And that's what we've obviously been taught. And he may well have invented the light bulb. However, how often do we hear the name Lewis Latimer, the Black man who invented the filament that goes inside the light bulb to make it, shine the light for a long, long time? I hadn't learned that. My children hadn't learned that. So it's really, really important for us to be sort of upgrading our knowledge all the time, really. And that's why I bring you today, Abu-Bakr. And the first question that I pose to Abu-Bakr is, what is the history behind Black History Month? And Abu-Bakr will answer that question for us today, alongside some other questions.
Hello, Shabnam. The first question you've asked is, what is the history behind Black History Month? I believe it was from Negro History Week. Yes, Black History started off as Negro History Week around about 1923 by an individual by the name of Carter G. Woodson. Carter G. Woodson was the second graduate from Harvard University, African American, after W.E.B. Du Bois, and he was the one which constructed this aspect of Negro History Week. The reason why it was important, Negro History Week, was because during the time of him studying history, he studied more about other people except for Black people. And the unfortunate reality about that was that Black people were relegated to colonization and enslavement, and they were people of nothing. And the wisdom behind Carter G. Woodson was to ensure that Black history, the positive elements of Black history as far as contribution, accomplishment and achievement was concerned, would be mapped out once every year, known as Negro History Week, because this is what Black people were called at the time in the 1920s, was Negro. So this is what you're trying to identify and trying to bring about a more positive understanding of black people. So this is how it started. And it wasn't until around about the civil rights movement of the mid-1950s with the Brown versus the Board of Education, which desegregated schools in the United States of America, and the bus strikes with Rosa Parks. This is where we started to see where black students within the academies wanted to try to push black studies, but obviously this was not acceptable. And then when the Civil Rights Act was passed in the mid-1960s, many of the black students decided they wanted to push further for a black curriculum to be within the academies, especially university. And what started to take place after that, the Negro Week or Negro History Week was slowly extended to Black History Month, because in African American society, they reduced the term Negro and they embraced the term black, because Negro had a negative connotation associated with slavery, enslavement, colonization. And this is what happened. So Black Study programs started to emerge from about the mid to the late 1960s. And the result of that reality was that Black History Month was born in the United States of America. And what happened was it was tried to impart to a large extent the positive contributions and achievements of black people. And to try to get in the academies, which was really a struggle, to tell the truth, you know, especially within America. Now, it emerged over in Britain around about a similar time, you know, Black History Month, but obviously it was done through the supplementary schools, especially in places like London, Birmingham, Luton and Manchester, which had large black demographies. And the reality was that many parents that came over here during the Windrush period felt that their children were not really and truly immersed within the curriculum. And it literally focused on the white experiences. So Black History Month within Britain really started around about the 21st century. There were some people doing Black History Month around the country in sporadic moments, but it never really crystallized until approximately maybe 20 years ago. In Wales, it started around about 2006, 2007, and that's when I was invited to become a speaker at Black History Month events, looking at the history, looking at the contribution, achievements and accomplishments of black people from a global perspective, but to focus more on Wales. So that's how it really started. In America, Black History Month is done during February. The reason why it's February, it's believed, is because this was, sometimes they say it's the birthday of Abraham Lincoln. I'm not sure if this is true. Or it was when the Emancipation Proclamation was passed in 1860. Emancipation Proclamation, which was passed approximately in 1863. Okay, this was supposed to abolish slavery around about that particular time. Some say it was due to the abolition of slavery, which is the 13th Amendment. So there's still a lot of differences of opinions why it was in February, but it is the shortest month, and it is a month in which black people within America embraced. In Britain, it was during October. I don't know the reason why it was October, but that's the reason why we have it in October, just to be a bit different from the African Americans, so it doesn't clash, to focus on the achievements of black people, not just in the diaspora, but also in Britain. The next question you ask is, although Black History Month should not be limited to 1 month only, what makes it important? It makes it important because one of the realities within Western society or within other cultural experiences is that Black History Month is relegated, unfortunately, to the positioning of black people within their social spheres. And what I mean by that is that black people are literally relegated to slavery or to the enslavement period. And DNA evidence has shown that black people are the oldest people on the planet. So how can their history really start in slavery? So the whole point of Black History Month is to bring about a new narrative, because during the 500-year period from 1492 right up to 1992, even now, that black history has been relegated to that part of history, a negative narrative, looking at enslavement, colonization, exploitation, degradation, etc. So it's important that we as groups of people, irrespective of our color, whether we're red, yellow, black, brown or white, have proper and true access to the experiences of black people on the globe throughout the planet. So that's what makes it important. And the other thing that makes it important as well is that Black history should not be seen through these negative lenses. So when we look at ancient Sumeria, ancient Egypt, ancient Kush, and all these other empires which they like to attribute to lighter-skinned people, Black people were part and parcel of that building, especially if you look at the theological perspectives in Islam, for instance, and within Christianity, that acknowledges that these were dark-skinned civilizations according to the genealogies which they came out of and what skin types they had at the time. This is verified by Islam and Christianity as well as Judaism. So sometimes these things are brushed over in order to attribute it to those people of the Indo-European stock. So that is why it's important. And if we look at Black History Month as an example, Black History Month is really for people outside the Black community to understand what we have done through society, through civilization, through contact, through migrations over the thousands of years that human beings have been on the planet. You also ask, and how does it serve? And who does it serve, sorry? So it serves everybody, to tell the truth, because Black history is about the human family. If Black people are the oldest people on the planet and the first people to migrate to all these different countries before the emergence of white people, then it's clear that white history, brown history, red history, yellow history is intrinsically linked to the Black historical experience of the past. And you cannot divide them just because race, being a social construct, have done that. You know, people have lived and migrated and integrated with one another for thousands of years. And skin color, to a large extent, was not a defining element to separate or segregate people from a positive relationship in which they would have been engaged in. So these are just important factors looking at Black History Month. One of the fortunate realities now is that Wales is the only country in the Western world which will now have Black, Asian and minority ethnic histories being part of its curriculum. And this was only possible because of Black History Month, which was an annual celebration. So that was a template or a precursor to that curricular change. So that was a positive thing which came out of it, because for us as Black people, Black history is an everyday experience. And the reason why we allocated it to 1 month was because the educational systems within Britain and other institutions and organizations did not really want to hear about it any other time. So it was a case that we embraced that and brought that about ourselves. So that is one of the reasons why Black history is important, because what it's done now, it's going to be the Welsh curriculum, which is going to be 365. Whether Black History Month will stay as it is, I think it should, because it gives access to white people who are not in school that access. But as far as the educational system is concerned, it will give access to pupils between the ages of 3 and 16. So if people were to ask me, should Black history be abolished as a month? No, I don't think it should be abolished as a month, because they're not doing it to other celebrations, whether it's once a week, once a year, whatever the case may be. And as for the last question, Shabnam, you asked about recognizing my contribution and achievements in education, and who are those people who inspired me, who motivated me to be what I am today. I think the first thing for me to bring to people's attention is that my spiritual commitment is a contributing factor, such as Islam. At the time when I embraced Islam, I was in my early 20s. I was in a bad place and I really wanted to change. So I think that was my first thing. You know, the type of people which are around me, which is a great influential factor in anyone's life, you know, positive role models, as well as the Creator, Allah. So that would be the first thing. The next person, I suppose, to inspire me were those personal family members, such as my grandmother, for instance. She was a storyteller. It was believed she was born in the latter part of the 1800s, and I suppose that's where I got my inspiration and motivation from to become a historian, because of the type of stories she told me about Jamaica and the Caribbean islands in general. The next person, I suppose, was my stepmother, who encouraged me to read and bought me encyclopedias at the age of 7 and 8 years old, you know, stopped me from reading children's books. So I think I was on a higher level playing field, to tell the truth. Next individuals that inspired me or motivated me were the likes of Asa G. Iliad. He was an educational psychologist. He was a chematologist, a historian in the United States of America. He passed away approximately 2007. And he inspired me to become a historian as well as an educator. I think this is what I got this element from. And I think it's important for us to know that people like Asa G. Iliad was a contributing factor. He was an educational consultant as well, and he was part of the movement for curricular change within the United States of America, because the same sort of fight they had in America was the same sort of fight which we had here for multicultural education. In America, it's called the curriculum of inclusion. Other individuals, probably before that, was the likes of Malcolm X. You know, this was in the late part of the 1980s, early 1990s. Many of his speeches, which was relevant to the social injustices within the United States of America, was an inspirational element for me, and looking at the similarities and the parallels within British society. There was other people as well, like authors like Ivan Van Sertima as an example, Wade Nobles, Anthony Browder. A lot of these are African-American scholars in the field of history. There wasn't much people besides that, you know, and obviously people like my teacher, Mr. Ackerman, Mr. David Ackerman, who fought for me to come out of a remedial class because I was deliberately placed in a remedial class. I think that's about it, really, to tell the truth, Shabnam, you know. There was other individuals as well, I suppose, you know, people like actors and, you know, celebrities, etc. But I think they were the main ones to push me academically, educationally, to where I am today. So in answering all your questions, I feel that, you know, those three questions that you've asked me were really important in order for you to understand the reality of the origins of Black History Month, where it came from, what type of mechanisms and processes were involved in order to bring that about, because Black History Month now is, you know, coming up to 100 years. You know, it started off in 1923, within 2021, so a couple of years' time, it'll be 100 years. It's been going on for a long time. So that's it really for me, Shabnam. Thanks for the interview. Thank you very much for the questions you've asked, and I hope that we deal with more issues when it comes to Black history, because as I have already outlined, the Black History Month is more than a month. It's a day, it's a week, it's hours, seconds, minutes, etc., because that's the experience of us as people. And the other thing as well is the importance for us to acknowledge and realize that the history of all people is important, and Black history is intrinsically linked to all other groups of people's experiences in the past. So thank you very much, Shabnam, and I hope that we can continue this interview at another time or a later time. Thank you very much, and goodbye. Bye-bye.
So thank you so very much, Abu-Bakr. I appreciate you. Thank you for answering those questions through the School of Shabs. I'm sure that this video is going to be very much valued by the viewers, and we hope to have you back with us again. Now, learning is a lifelong event, and it can start at any point. And whilst it's really important that history stands corrected and the curriculum changes through the educational system so that our children can be taught correct history, and Black history is included as a part of that, like in Wales. It can also start anywhere, and actually my view is that it should be embedded throughout, be that high school, primary school, college, universities, and other places where we access our learning, media, social media. And what we really need to think about as educators is who are we quoting? You know, when we're teaching subjects like maths, sociology, psychology, English, and of course history, who are we quoting? Who are we talking about? Who forms part of that lesson? In universities, when we're talking about social work models, whose models do we often refer to? So all these things provide us an opportunity for us to take responsibility to reclaim Black history, actually, and to correct history. So I thank you very much for watching the video today. I'll be back hopefully next month. In the meantime, please don't forget to subscribe, press like on my video, and follow me on Twitter. Bye-bye.